In the vast and silent expanse of the cosmos, where the light of distant stars flickers like dying embers, one cannot help but wonder, what secrets lie hidden in the shadows of the universe? Dr. Zephyr Valon, an esteemed astrophysicist from the bustling city of Nova Ceres, had devoted his life to unraveling these mysteries. It was during a routine scan with high-resolution telescopes positioned atop the craggy peaks of Olympus Mons that he first detected it, a signal anomalous and haunting, emanating from a location too close to the sun for comfort. As the images materialized on his screen, they revealed a mass obscured by darkness, moving erratically against the backdrop of the solar system. Unusual pulses of light flickered from its surface, and in the depths of its shadowy form, Zephyr saw them, faces, grotesque and contorted, watching with eyes that seemed to pierce through the veil of reality itself. It was as if an ancient intelligence, long dormant, had stirred from its slumber, beckoning forth the curious and the foolhardy alike into its depths. This discovery, heralded as the most significant find since the dawn of human exploration into the stars, sent shockwaves throughout the scientific community. The provisional designation of this newly uncovered celestial entity, Erebus, sparked fervent debate and speculation. Zephyr, at the helm of an elite team from the International Space Agency, stood on the precipice of a profound enigma. Erebus was not merely a planet. It was a riddle wrapped in the fabric of time, laden with geometric structures and inscriptions that spoke of a civilization older than humanity itself. The very air around them seemed to hum with an unsettling energy, a prelude to the horrors that awaited. As the crew approached Erebus, the atmosphere aboard their vessel thickened with unease. Instruments began to register strange vibrations, echoes of forgotten languages whispering through the void, as if the cosmos itself was warning them of the impending doom. Zephyr felt an unsettling familiarity with the phenomenon, recalling tales from his childhood, stories whispered in the dark of the old quarters of Martius, where shadows danced like phantoms on the walls. Those tales spoke of gods and monsters, of beings that transcended mortal understanding, and now, it seemed, they were all too real. The environment around Erebus was a tapestry of chaos. The ship's hull trembled under the weight of gravitational anomalies, distorting the very fabric of space. Zephyr's mind raced with the implications of their mission. Each pulse of light from the planet was a heartbeat of something ancient and powerful, something that could unravel the sanity of those who dared to draw near. The feeling of being watched gnawed at him, tightening its grip as they edged closer to the enigmatic body. Unbeknownst to his crew, Zephyr harbored a secret, a fear that clawed at the edges of his mind. His father had vanished during a deep space expedition decades ago, consumed by the very darkness they now sought to explore. Was history doomed to repeat itself? As the vessel drew ever nearer to Erebus, the fabric of his past intertwined with the present, a harbinger of the chaos to come. But when night fell upon the ship, something inexplicable happened, an event that would forever alter their understanding of reality and compel them to confront the terror that awaited them on Erebus. As the vessel drew closer to Erebus, the atmosphere thickened with an eerie tension that weighed heavily on the crew. Dr. Zephyr Valon stood at the helm, his gaze locked onto the pulsating surface of the celestial body, feeling the shadows of his past begin to echo in the present. The ship hummed with a low vibration, a sound that seemed to resonate with the very core of his being. The crew, comprised of experts in various fields, was beginning to show signs of distress, their initial excitement waning under the oppressive weight of uncertainty. Among them was Dr. Mira Larkin, a brilliant xenobiologist whose enthusiasm for the unknown had always been infectious. Her sharp eyes flickered with both fascination and fear as she studied the readings from Erebus. "Zephyr," she said, her voice a blend of awe and anxiety, "these light pulses, They're not just random, they're rhythmic, almost like a language. We need to decode it before it's too late. Dr. Felix Oren, the ship's engineer, leaned over the console, his brow furrowed in concentration. We're running out of time. The gravitational fluctuations are increasing. If we don't stabilize our orbit soon, we could be pulled into its gravitational field. We'll be trapped here. His words hung in the air, heavy with foreboding. Zephyr felt the pressure, mounting, both from the ship and within himself. Each heartbeat seemed synchronized with the pulses from Erebus, each thrum a reminder of his father's fate. He remembered the last conversation they had, a warning about the darkness that lay beyond the stars. Regret merged with determination as he turned to his crew. We can't turn back now. We need to understand Erebus. Whatever it is, it holds the key to a greater mystery, but we must tread carefully. The crew exchanged wary glances, but Zephyr's resolve stirred an undercurrent of loyalty. They had embarked on this journey together, driven by a shared thirst for knowledge and a desire to confront the unknown. Yet, as night descended upon the ship, the eerie glow of Erebus cast long shadows across the control room, and the crew's resolve began to waver. Suddenly, the ship jolted violently. Alarms blared and the lights flickered ominously as they were caught in a vortex of gravitational anomalies. "Stabilize the thrusters," Felix shouted, his hands a blur as he fought to regain control. But the instruments were unresponsive, flashing erratically as if caught in a trance. The crew's panic grew palpable, and Zephyr felt his heart race. "Look," Mira gasped, pointing toward the viewport. The faces he had seen in the shadows of Erebus materialized in the darkness beyond, their features twisted in expressions of hunger and despair. They seemed to reach out, silently pleading or perhaps warning. "What are they?" she whispered, horror creeping into her voice. "They're manifestations of something far beyond our understanding," Zephyr replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "But they're also part of this mystery. We need to confront them, not flee." As he spoke, a chill enveloped the room, and the lights dimmed to a near-complete blackness. An oppressive silence descended, broken only by the sound of their rapid breathing. The crew huddled together, fear etched across their faces. In that moment, Zephyr felt the weight of their collective dread, the psychological strain of what lay ahead. "Why did we come here?" Felix muttered, a tremor in his voice. "What were we thinking?" "Because we're explorers," Zephyr replied, though uncertainty gnawed at him. "Because we seek the truth, no matter how terrifying." Tension crackled in the air as they stood on the precipice of the unknown, each crew member wrestling with their own fears. The faces outside the ship seemed to shift, morphing into forms that evoked memories of loss and despair. Zephyr's mind raced as he considered the implications of what they were witnessing, the possibility that Erebus was not just a celestial body, but a harbinger of their deepest fears. In that moment of shared vulnerability, a decision loomed. They could retreat into the safety of ignorance or plunge deeper into the abyss of knowledge. The choice would shape not only their fates, but the fate of humanity itself, as the shadows of Erebus beckoned them closer and the darkness whispered secrets that had long remained buried. As the crew stood frozen in dread, the ship shuddered again, the vibrations resonating through their bodies. The faces outside transformed once more. Now they were indistinct shapes that flickered like static on a screen, and in that chaos, a sudden realization struck Zephyr like a thunderclap. The shadows weren't just echoes of Erebus. They were reflections of their own psyches, manifestations of their fears and regrets. "Dr. Larkin," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, What if these aren't just hallucinations? What if Erebus is feeding off our fears?" He felt the weight of his own buried trauma surfacing, threatening to drown him in its depths. Memories of his father's warnings churned in his mind, blurring the lines between reality and the phantoms outside. Mira's brow knitted in thought, her scientific mind grappling with the implications. If that's true, then we may not just be dealing with a celestial phenomenon. We could be facing something sentient, something that can manipulate our minds. Her eyes widened, recalling the stories of explorers who lost their sanity in the depths of space. We need to be careful. If it can see our fears, it can use them against us. Felix, grappling with his own insecurities, felt the weight of the ship's instability pressing against him. This is madness. We're trapped in a nightmare. His hands trembled above the controls, the ghosts outside seeming to claw at his sanity. What if we're not even here? What if this is all a construct of our minds? We could be dead and don't even know it. The words struck Zephyr hard. He felt the ground shift beneath him, and for a moment the ship felt less like a vessel and more like a coffin, sealing them in with their tormented memories. He thought of the promise he had made to himself to uncover the truth about Erebus, a truth that now felt like a weight dragging him into an abyss. "Focus," Zephyr commanded, his voice rising above the panic. "We need to confront what we see. Each of us has something to lose, but we also have the power to overcome it." He locked eyes with Mira, aware that her own demons were lurking just beneath her brave facade. "What haunts you, Mira?" With a shuddering breath, Mira confessed, "I lost my sister years ago in a research accident. I've always felt responsible, like I could have saved her." The admission hung heavy in the air, a revelation that connected her to the darkness outside. Felix, too, was forced to confront his past. "I've been running from my failures. I thought I could fix anything, but I couldn't save my family. From the fire." His voice cracked, the engineer's bravado crumbling under the weight of his guilt. As they bared their souls, the shadows outside surged with intensity, swirling in a tempest of grief and regret. The ship rocked violently, and the lights flickered as if responding to their emotional upheaval. The strange pulsating light from Erebus pulsed faster, each beat resonating with their confessions. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from the celestial body, engulfing the ship in a wave of energy. Zephyr felt a jolt in his mind, as if the very fabric of his reality was unraveling. In that moment, he was thrust into a vivid vision of his father, standing before him, warning him of the darkness that lay ahead. "Do not let it consume you," the apparition shouted, but the voice echoed with an otherworldly distortion. Zephyr's heart raced. Was this a warning or a cruel trick of Erebus? The crew staggered back, each grappling with their own revelations and the overwhelming force of the vision. It was clear now that Erebus was not merely a celestial anomaly, it was a crucible, a test of their very souls. And as they stood on the brink of madness, the crew had to decide, would they face their fears and delve deeper into the mystery, or would they succumb to the darkness, forever lost to the shadows of Erebus? In that moment of chaos, the path ahead became shrouded in uncertainty, and the stakes had never been higher. As the ship continued to tremble, Zephyr felt the weight of his crew's fears pressing down on him like an anchor, dragging them into the abyss. The flickering shadows outside morphed into grotesque forms, their anguished faces reflecting the turmoil within. He realized that this was the moment of reckoning, the decisive moment that would either lead them to salvation or plunge them deeper into despair. "Together," Zephyr shouted, rallying his crew, "we can't let Erebus control us. We have to face it head on." His voice cut through the cacophony, a beacon of resolve in the storm of emotions swirling around them. Mira, still shaken but resolute, nodded. "We have to harness our fears, channel them into a force that can push back against this entity." She stepped forward, her scientific mind racing. "If Erebus feeds off our fears, then we can turn that energy against it. We have to confront our pasts." Together, Felix, still trembling but inspired by their determination, clenched his fists. "I won't let it take me. I've lost enough." "Already," the engineer's voice rose, filled with a fierce desperation that echoed through the ship. "Let's destroy this thing before it destroys us." Just then, the shadows outside coalesced into a towering figure, a monstrous reflection of their collective guilt and despair. It loomed over them, eyes glowing with an unsettling hunger. Zephyr felt a chill race up his spine as the entity reached out, tendrils of darkness coiling around the ship, seeking to ensnare them. "Focus," Zephyr urged, his heart pounding in rhythm with the pulsating light from Erebus. "Think of what we want to overcome, what we can save." As one, the crew closed their eyes, summoning the memories they had just shared. Mira envisioned her sister, alive and laughing, the weight of responsibility melting away. Felix conjured the image of his family, their smiles illuminating the darkness he had carried for so long. Zephyr thought of his father's pride, the hope that had fueled his quest for knowledge. The energy shifted, a palpable force gathering around them, fueled by their resolve. The shadows writhed and screamed, their form distorting as they collided, with the wave of light emanating from the crew's unified spirits. It was as if the very essence of their hopes and dreams had become a shield against the darkness, but just as the tide seemed to turn, a figure emerged from the depths of the shadows. Dr. Larkin. Her eyes glinted with a strange light, and a smile curled on her lips that sent a shiver down Zephyr's spine. "You think you can defeat it? You're merely feeding into its power." Her voice was calm, almost hypnotic, as if she were the embodiment of their fears. "You can't escape what's inside you." A flicker of doubt pierced through the crew's resolve. Had they miscalculated? Was Larkin part of the darkness they were fighting? The tension in the air thickened, and Zephyr felt the fabric of their newfound strength begin to fray. "Do not listen to her," Zephyr shouted, his voice breaking through the chaos. "We have the power to rewrite our stories. We will not be defined by our pasts." As Larkin's figure loomed larger, the confrontation reached its zenith. The crew stood at the precipice, their fears and regrets personified before them. Would they succumb to the shadows that threatened to engulf them, or would they find the strength to confront the darkness and emerge victorious? In that heart-stopping moment, as Larkin advanced with malevolent intent, the crew understood that their fate hinged on the choices they made now. The battle for their souls had begun, and the outcome would shape the destiny of not just their lives, but the very essence of who they were. As the confrontation with Erebus reached its fever pitch, Zephyr felt a surge of energy coursing through him, ignited by the determination of his crew. Their collective memories, filled with loss, hope, and resilience, swirled around them, forming a protective barrier against the encroaching darkness. Yet, as Dr. Larkin's sinister presence loomed, doubt seeped into their hearts, threatening to fracture their unity. With a final defiant roar, Zephyr thrust his hand forward, channeling every ounce of willpower into the light they had conjured. The luminous force exploded outward, colliding with the shadows in a blinding flash. For a heartbeat, time suspended, and the ship trembled as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. Then, silence. As the light dissipated, the crew found themselves alone on the deck, the monstrous figure of Erebus vanquished, yet the air remained thick with an unsettling tension. The shadows had receded, but the scent of ash lingered, and the remnants of Larkin's laughter echoed in their minds. Zephyr fell to his knees, gasping for breath, feeling the weight of exhaustion settle over him like a shroud. His heart ached, not just from the physical exertion, but from the emotional scars that would take far longer to heal. Mira was the first to break the stillness, her brow furrowed in thought. "We did it, but at what cost?" Her voice trembled as she surveyed the remnants of their battle. The ship had survived, but the crew was irrevocably changed, their spirits marked by the shadows they had faced. Felix shook his head, wiping his brow as he fought back tears. "I can still hear her voice. It's like she's still here, whispering doubts." His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the residue of an encounter that had left an indelible mark on his soul. Zephyr rose unsteadily, glancing at his crew, their expressions a mix of relief and lingering dread. "We face the darkness, but it's clear this isn't over. Larkin, she's still a part of us, and we need to confront that." The shadows may have retreated, but the remnants of their fears remained like ghosts, haunting their thoughts. As the crew began to gather themselves, they noticed a flicker of movement at the edge of the deck. A shadow, deeper and darker than the rest, shifted just beyond the reach of the fading light. Zephyr's heart raced as he approached it, his intuition telling him they had not seen the last of Erebus's influence. "What's that?" Mira asked, stepping closer. The air crackled with unease and they all felt it, a presence lurking just beyond their comprehension, a whisper of unresolved mysteries that taunted them. Felix swallowed hard. "We need to investigate. If Larkin has left something behind, we can't ignore it." His voice held an urgency that resonated with the others. As they moved toward the shadow, a sense of foreboding washed over them. The battle had been won, but the war against their own darkness was far from over. Zephyr took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever lay ahead. They might have survived this confrontation, but the journey to unravel the strength of their fears and the lingering influence of Erebus had only just begun. With a shared look of determination, the crew stepped forward, ready to face whatever awaited them. The ship, once a vessel of nightmares, now transformed into a beacon of hope, sailed into the unknown, where new challenges and enigmas awaited. A new chapter had begun, and Zephyr knew it would test them in ways they could not yet imagine. As Zephyr and his crew approached the flickering shadow, a dreadful realization dawned upon them. The darkness they had fought against was not merely an external force, but a manifestation of their own fears. The shadows deepened, swirling around them like smoke, and with each step they took, the weight of their past failures and regrets began to materialize before their eyes. Suddenly, the shadow transformed, coalescing into a figure that mirrored each of their deepest anxieties. For Zephyr, it took the form of a monstrous version of himself, twisted by self-doubt and guilt. "You have triumphed over Erebus, yet you cannot escape the truth," it hissed. "You are the architect of your own nightmares." Mira faced her reflection, a ghostly visage of the friends and family she had lost, their disappointed eyes filled with sorrow. Felix staggered back, confronted by his own insecurities, a shadow that whispered of his inadequacies. The crew was ensnared in a web of their own making, their worst fears now tangible, suffocating their spirits. With the ship swaying perilously beneath them, Zephyr felt the weight of despair clawing at his heart. "No," he shouted, but the shadow only laughed, a sound that reverberated with the echoes of their past. The realization struck him hard. They had vanquished Erebus, but in doing so, they had awakened the very essence of their own nightmares. As the figures closed in, the crew clung to one another, but it was too late. The darkness enveloped them, and Zephyr understood that their battle was far from over. It had merely begun anew. The ship drifted into the void, swallowed by silence, leaving behind a lingering dread that would haunt them forever. Their fears had come to life, and now they were trapped within the confines of a reality shaped by their own making, a nightmare turned real. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story.